going to have our CEO panel. And the moderator to this is a wonderful woman named Sharon Hildebrand. Now I know that her company has just been acquired. I just want to make sure I have that right name. Oh, shoot, the one time I come in up with it. Let me tell you something different about Sharon Hildebrand then. Sorry, let me improv and mentally pivot on this one. So Sharon has been involved with WIT for about 7 or 8 years, and she has been a passionate advocate of cultivating a relationship with young women, getting them interested in STEM. She has now launched MSHE, which is Monkey Swinging Hammers Empowered. And let me tell you, there's a whole story to that, and it's a good one. There is an opportunity for you to sign up, no cost, to either be mentored or be a mentor, to be a mentor or a mentee, to be a contributor to this community. And what she has zeroed in on is a pocket in the community of women who are re-entering the workforce. We have our work cut out for us, making sure that we have women and young girls interested in STEM, but let me tell you, this pocket of talented, huge potential of women who are re-entering the workforce often suffer from a disconnect after being either home with their families or for whatever. This is going to be a powerful networking tool for that pocket of women especially. Here, sponsoring our CEO panel and the moderator, please help me welcome advocate and wonderful woman, Sharon Hildebrand. CapEx, what was the name of your
Hitachi.
Hitachi.
CapEx Hitachi.
Shoot, missed that one.
That's okay. I had a chance to repeat it a couple times, which is good. Thank you very much, and well done. Well, I'd like to welcome you all to this afternoon's CEO panel, which the conversation is going to be centered around advice to my younger self. My name is Sharon Hildebrand, and I have the pleasure and honor of introducing you to our amazing CEO talent. Today, I'd like to begin with Jennifer Didier from Directions Training. Give her a hand. Medina Ali from Safe PC Solutions. And Terry Steffen from Acuity Edge. Welcome, ladies. Please have a seat. Truly appreciate the intro to MSH Empowers and MSHE, and I would like to quickly announce, as sponsor of the CEO panel, there are 15 WIT memberships that are available to you if you want to sign up and join the mailing list. We will go ahead and have those raffled off or lottoed off. So 15 free annual memberships are available to anyone who's not currently a member to join the community. Let's go ahead and get started, because I had the amazing opportunity to spend quality time with each of these ladies prior to today, learning their stories, learning more about their journey, and I'm just going to dive right in the spirit of time, because I want to make sure you all have the chance to ask them your own questions. So Jennifer, I'd love to start with you. And what was great about you and what I learned being a dear friend, and I didn't even know, you've actually always been in technology. You've had this massive passion for computers. And at a pretty early age, you started essentially your own company in technology. As I learned and listened to your story, you had some really strong fundamental lessons that you had taught yourself and that are still foundational to your career. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't know how many of you remember video stores. I'm really old. So we had neighborhood video stores. This was prior to Blockbuster. And I was 15, and I walked into a video store, and they had a handwritten video list of all the movies that they had with the number next to it. And it was not alphabetized. It was not typed up. It was handwritten, and there were pages and pages of all the movies in the store. And immediately I looked at it and said, wow, this is this is a computer problem that I can solve. And so I asked the owner, I said, would you like your list alphabetized? And, I'll put it in my computer, I'll print it out, I'll bring it to you weekly. You can give me the new updates, I'll put those in there. And he said, yeah, that would be awesome. So that was my first, my beginning into entrepreneurship. And before I knew it, I think I had like 12, 15 stores that I was actually doing their video lists and updating them on a monthly basis
And remind us
making
again
money.
how old you were at this time?
I was 15.
Please continue.
So, so when I looked at that list and I thought, wow, I see a problem that I want to solve, and that's where my first thought was I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
And then what came from that was this passion. You talked about helping people and how satisfying that was as part of your foundation and kind of how you apply that to your job today. So
Yeah, so, solving problems, and really, I also did a lot of training early on, and solving problems and seeing that light bulb go off in people's heads, saying, oh, I got it, was so empowering for me and so motivating that that's when I started to think about having a career owning a training center.
starting at 15 and asking the question, what can I do to help this person, then fosters this wonderful mantra, what can I do to help people? Yeah. And leading with that, I think, is something beautiful. And working with you in business, I also have the chance to benefit from, and my customers also. So I'd like to go on to Adina, who actually didn't choose or didn't elect to start in technology. You had a impressive career, college career in economics, and then we talked a little bit about your journey into the telecommunications industry, and you used words like glass ceiling and not seeing a lot of mobility for you to move around. And then there was an interesting event when you were at that company that taught you a couple lessons. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Okay. Well, I went into, after I got my graduate degree in economics, I went on to work with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and at the time, that's when the voice over IP technology was booming. And so I really began in telecommunications, customer care, call center related activities. And then I evolved into the service desk. So that's kind of how I went into IT. But when I was at the telecommunications company, there was only one woman at the executive level. And what I saw that was very frustrating, and I was probably in my mid to late 20s at the time, almost 30, was here was this woman who had worked her entire career. She'd worked so hard, had worked for, at the time, the Baby Bells, had gotten to the level of chief marketing officer, had launched products that generated millions, close to billions of dollars, and they were never going to give her COO or CEO. And then she had to leverage being a woman to get somewhere. And one day we were talking, and I told her, I says, I don't want to ever use the race card. I don't ever want to use the gender card. I want to be known for my brain and my intelligence. I went to Cornell University, and that was not a cheap education. And I wanted to be valued for my intelligence. And I think I realized when I was 26, 27 that I'm going to have to be in control of my career. Because if you go into these corporations, women are just not treated always fairly. And we don't always are given the opportunity. So I said, if I start my own company, then I will create my opportunity.
I fell in love with the being in control of my career, and she actually, a nice plug for the Women in Cloud, and I quote, I learned being part of that community and communities like the WIT Network to be bold, be strategic, and be intentional. And I thought those are great words that we constantly should remind ourselves of. I thought that was fantastic. So Terry, the morning was all about mentors and having personal advisory boards. You have a pretty incredible story about some folks very close to you that served as great mentors. And when we went down the path and I learned about your journey and the lessons that you learned from these people, which I know the room is anxious to share, you use words like, this is why my company is what it is today, and this is why I am who I am today. So I know the room is ready to hear a little bit more about the story and your first exposure to who's still one of your best mentors.
Thank you. So, note to self, Kleenexes are required. They should be on stage as well as I start to tell this story. So the mentors in my life were my parents. I was 17 years old, and they actually started a business. My dad was a pipe fitter. He built nuclear power plants. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, which to me is the greatest job in the world. And she was pretty good at it. So my dad came in one day and threw keys on the table and said, I bought a bow business. And my mom's like, okay, Terry wraps the best gifts. I can't tie my shoelaces hardly, so why are we doing this bow business? He said, archery. My dad went and bought this small 20 by 24 archery pro shop and told my mom that she's going to run it while he still worked. So the first day my mother walks into the building, the lock falls off in her hand. And for the first 5 years, my mom ran that company. They didn't take a salary. My dad still worked the trades and helped my brother and I get through college through the whole time. But through that, I had the opportunity to watch some amazing things and learn some amazing life lessons. In the third year of their business, my mother realized that the distributors didn't care about the small guy. The distributors within the industry in manufacturing of archery equipment and sporting goods really didn't pay attention to people her size. She saw an opportunity and she went for it. Now this is a male-dominated industry she was the first woman owner of an archery pro shop and the first woman on the board of directors for the archery association board. She was actually president of that 3 years running, they asked her. And she still was the only woman in this industry. So she really encouraged me to really kind of go out there. But what I found was when she decided to start the distributorship, it was because there's something beyond customer service. And that's what you said, customer care. And so there was a rule that customer care is what was essential, and that the small guy matters. And even when my parents grew 22 years later to the third largest archery distributor in the world, and my mom made Inc. 500 twice, and as they grew, of their 7,500 dealers, any one of them could call her and she would answer the phone. And there was always a rule to make the dealer feel important. You could never answer the phone without a smile on your face first, because it makes a difference. Your attitude, your tone, your day comes across through your voice when you answer the phone, depending upon your facial expressions. But the fact that customer care, and that was my first experience of what true customer experience was supposed to be like, and that's why I've chosen what I do and driving customer experience excellence and differentiation in manufacturing.
Love the story, love the focus on customer care. Oh, and she's not done with her family yet. Just wait for it. It gets better. So back to Jennifer. Again, you had this passion for technology. You launched a company in your teens. We talked about how you love to play with computers. You saved up for your first computer. So you thought you had your path charted in tech, a little bit different than Medina. But then something happened at your first, I'll say your first full-time technology job. And there was a really invaluable, I'm going to say, learning experience that you lived through. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So even prior to that, I'll get to that story in a minute, but even prior to that, I got a computer science degree and went to work for Bell & Howell and did programming for them. and realized very, very soon that I just didn't like to be behind the computer and not talk to people. And so I decided I would look at other technology positions. And so I then took a position at Entree Computer Center, and I took a sales position there, and loved it because, again, it was solving business problems. It was talking to the customer, understanding what they needed, and then putting together a solution for them, not only with hardware, software, the solution that we were putting together, and I just loved that. And then we started to plan a family, and I had my first daughter in '89, and after I had her, I did not want to go back to work. I wanted to stay home with her. And so I called my boss and said, you know, I really don't want to come back to work because I really want to be with her and raise her. And he said, well, if you want to, you know, do some training at night at our center, you can do that. If your husband gets home from work, then he can be with the baby, and you can have, you know, some time where you come out and do training for our customers. I thought, oh, I'll give it a try. That wasn't the plan. I was a programmer. And that's when I started to just love the training business, because it was, again, solving problems for the customer. It was that light bulb that went off. And I thought, wow, I'm making a difference. These people are going back. They're more productive. They're creating more value for their customers. They're creating more value for their companies. So even though that wasn't the path, I went ahead and did that, and really, really enjoyed it. But you know, it was always challenging, because we used to use babysitters that were neighbors and friends, and they would always be busy or they'd get sick, and it was just always a scramble. But it was really, really good to do the training and then have a career as well as be home with my daughter.
Well, I think one of the things that resonated with me, and you used it a few times during this part of the conversation, was open-minded. You always kept an open mind. You went from going to be a programmer, then, well, let me try this sales thing. And then the sales opportunity led you to training opportunity, and now you have had your successful company for quite a while. So that really resonated well, always being open-minded and not necessarily thinking that single path is necessarily what you have to move down and chart
That's
down.
very true. All through my career, I mean, there's always changes, and you have to adapt, and you have to be open to new things, and they've always led me to something that I'm amazed that I didn't think of it, but the path took me there.
Yeah, no, it was great. All right, Medina, let's fast forward to Safe PC Solutions. And again, you have lived through some interesting times, and we use the word reinventing that business and going from the one model to another type of model. And you had some pretty strong advice about what your approach towards doing that and what you learned from it. So can you share with the room a little bit more from a professional standpoint what your takeaways were?
Well, when we started Safe PC Solutions, it was just really focusing on data security, you know, antivirus protection, making sure your system wouldn't crash. And now that the cloud is here, and then we got it, then, you know, once someone showed up to the office one day and he says, well, we have 25 devices, 2 of them have crashed. Can you recover the data? And my entrepreneurial self said, yes, we can recover the data, not knowing what he meant by recovering the data. So I said, of course. And so we started learning to become specialists in data recovery, and people started referring us. And then we had a consumer client that owned a business, and then we ended up doing work for his business, and then he wanted computer equipment, and then we evolved on the equipment side. But more importantly, a year ago, we've launched Safe PC Cloud. And that is where we're focusing more on the data backup solutions, hybrid cloud solutions. We're moving into corporations, we're moving into government enterprises. We have partnered recently with Microsoft Education in terms of putting devices into the school and looking at education technology, because I definitely believe we have to prepare our young children, particularly our girls, because they get discouraged in technology. So we're working on a lot of different STEM initiatives. So my advice to anyone in IT is that you have to remain open-minded, like Jennifer said. You have to evolve because the business model keeps changing. Equipment is not really going away. It's just the way we manage our data, the way we look at our data, the way we're going to collaborate. Because even just yesterday, one of my staff members was on the training with the Nimble CRM and the Office 365, and she realized, she says, you know, I'm thinking Office 365 is just Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but it's really about collaboration and really being able to work across the globe, locally, nationally, on the same platform and sharing the technology. So how do we get that platform into our clients' hand? How do we train them on this new technology so they can become more productive? So that's how you have to kind of evolve yourself in business.
I love the reuse of the word reinvent that you
Yes.
actually mentioned over and over, and actually you used the word fear a couple times.
Oh,
You're in
yeah,
a very
yeah.
comfortable place. We're in one business model, and now because you have to pivot and to be successful,
Exactly.
you know, you ran to it. So
Yep.
it was Barbara who said a setback is a setup for a comeback, and I thought that, you know, not look at those things as setbacks, but you focused forward, which is a great story. All right, moving on to Terry then, and actually one of your first companies that you started, Business Image Group. Let's talk about lessons learned. This was both good, bad, and different. So loved hearing how you went into this. There was a merger, I believe, that happened, and then out of that, I know, I'd like you to share your story with the rest of the room.
So the first business I started was Business Image Group, and it was a marketing communications firm. And it happened to be that we actually catered primarily to manufacturing distribution channel organizations, and a lot of them are my technology clients today. But with that, and it was based on my mom encouraging me to do it. So I went out and I just went for it. And had the opportunity to merge with another company. And I should have listened to my mom because she gave me really good advice. And it was after the fact that I figured out, yeah, I should have not done this. And that is that I didn't take the opportunity because the opportunity was so exciting, right? And we all have these opportunities in our lives, and we're just like, yes, this is it. But we need to take a step back and breathe and say, is this really the right opportunity? And there are some things that I use that I look back now that I should have used to evaluate, but I actually use them now to evaluate just major life decisions in general. And first of all, I looked at the fact of what kind of impact am I going to have on this organization, the lives in the organization, and those that we serve as our customers. Because I don't like to think that they're our customers, but that we serve them in some way. What kind of impact am I going to have within my boardroom, you know, and what am I going to be able to do? My voice, we all talk about our voice, but what was key to me is, am I going to have a voice? But will I be heard? Will what I say bring value? Will it seem to come across as value? And also what is my role? Yeah, I'll come in as this type of officer within the organization, but what does that mean? What does that identify my role to be? What kind of impact will that role have? And I learned a lot from that by not going in with my eyes wide open, that it wasn't the best work environment for me. It wasn't the best decision for me. I mean, we proved to be very successful as a company, but for me personally, it cost. And so at that point, it really made me evaluate things in my career at that point moving forward, and using these principles that I learned the hard way, but learned from in all decisions that I make.
I really, really loved, and this was something, and maybe I just needed it at the moment. They say that stuff comes to you when you're ready. When I heard you talk about evaluating your power of influence, the power of your voice, making sure you had one, it was very easy, very relatable to me, which I'm sure I'm seeing some head nods around the room. It is for other folks as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, Jennifer, last round of questions. Getting back to your family and how important they are, and work-life balance, which, by the way, it's okay that it's not achievable and attainable. You and I are in agreement with that. Take that, you have this wonderful open-mindedness, but again, you still want to, with your children at an early age, starting directions training, you got really creative on how to get close to that, or at least find some normalcy around work-life balance. And I think the room would love to hear how you pulled your family in and made it a wonderful, loving endeavor for everybody to kind of join your ride and your journey.
Okay. So, so in '89, I had Nicole, who was my oldest daughter, and then, sorry, '87, and then in '89, I had Lauren. And so at that point, I was still doing training at night and still really enjoying it, and loved the interaction with my customers, loved the interaction with just the whole light bulb, going off. And so I thought, I can do this. I can open a business doing training. And I talked to my husband, and I said, this will give me much more time with the kids. Wrong. And that was really the intention. I was thinking I'm going to have a lot more time with my kids because I will be able to set my schedule, right? I can say when I'm working, when I'm not working. I was very naive, obviously. And so we took a $30,000 home equity loan and started Directions in 1991. And I was doing a lot of training on site. I didn't have a location of my own. I was doing a lot of training at customer sites, and I'd go even to people's homes and do training at that time. And then a couple of my customers said, Jennifer, we'd really like to send our employees off-site from the company to a distraction-free environment because, when they're here, they're always interrupted. People are always asking them to step out from the class. And so that's what started my first training center that I opened in Chicago. And now I have no life-work balance, right? Because now I have 2 kids, and I've got this business that I've invested in. How do I do all of this? And so we would set up the classes. I take both girls into the training center. Little 3- and 5-year-olds would be carrying keyboards and mice. And I don't know if you remember in the old days, Microsoft Office was 23 discs. So I had to teach them how to take one out, put the other one in. If it says disc 2, put disc 2 in. So here in the classroom at night, we'd all go in, my husband, 2 daughters, and me, and we'd set up the classrooms. They would love to get on the chair and erase the boards, the whiteboards, so they felt very part of this. So they grew up in the business from day one. And so that was my work-life balance, so I could still be with them and still be in their company and talk to them, but still get the job done.
Awesome. I love the story. Love it. So, Medina, moving on to and kind of parlaying onto the reinventing yourself, and we talked about professionally how you were able to pivot and now keep Safe PC Solutions, top of mind for people and be very successful. But there were similar lessons that we talked about that you actually applied to your personal life. And I thought it was really interesting when I was listening to you tell the story, and then we went to personal goals and kind of how you apply what you learned through that experience day to day. I think that would be really interesting and fascinating for the room to hear.
Well, the work-life balance is very, very hard. I think when you're running a business, because like you said, I thought I was gonna have a lot more free time, and you really don't. And now my mother was, about a year ago, she was diagnosed with dementia. So one of the benefits, it does give me the flexibility where I don't have to always be in the office. So I can be there with her. So that is the benefit of being kind of like the head, where you can have other people be there day to day. But one of the things I have to learn and keep relearning is you got to take care of yourself first. And that's about, me doing the yoga, me doing my exercise, me mentally kind of getting away just from it all, and just making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, because we always want to take care of everybody else. And even, I have 2 brothers, they have their own business, but, my father was saying, well, you're the daughter, even though I have my own business. And I go, and I do a lot more traveling than they do. I mean, Dad around the world. So, I'm gone sometimes a week, 2 weeks, and so it's just so unfair sometimes how it's all on, the women. So fortunately, I have my aunts and I have my friends who have stepped in to help me, but again, not really getting that support system has been really hard. And he was like, well, that's what daughters do. So, so that's been kind of difficult. So I always encourage everyone, make sure you take care of yourself first.
That's extremely important, and goes in line with some of the other things we talked about, especially having this parent that you have to care for. You talked about setting boundaries and the power of delegation. And not to be afraid. We always think we have to do everything and handle everything on our own, and having that network, having a team, even personally or professionally, how important you talked about delegation is, and then also setting boundaries, knowing, when to say no, when to turn the phone off, which I'm sure helps support you and take care of your family as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Terry.
Yes.
So to wrap things up, the power of your personal story and the experiences, and again, I had the luxury of spending 30 minutes plus with each of these women, which was great. But I really honed in on her mom, on how much she talked about her. And I thought, okay, this is amazing. She talked about some lessons that she wished she would have listened to. But overall, if she were to write a book, and I'm saying this by design because she really needs to, I'm just telling you. Stories, lessons learned from her mother. So I'm teeing it up for her right now.
Okay.
In June. What would you consider the top 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you haven't shared with us yet that you'd like to share with the room based on your superior mentor of your mom?
The 3 pieces, and with some caveats, are first of all, to not ever be intimidated. Don't go into a room intimidated. Don't go into a business intimidated. Don't go into an industry intimidated. 4 years ago, I didn't know how to spell CRM. Now, within a year after that, I was a Dynamics Gold partner with Microsoft and landed our 3rd enterprise client. So don't be intimidated. And my mom did teach me that because she was in an all-male industry. The one thing that I also took away is to be very creative and think outside the box. When you don't think that there's a way to get something done or to do something, there's always a way. So to be creative. And I actually used this most recently. I've been working to try and get meetings with this large global company for over 18 months. And I found out that they were doing an EBC out in Redmond with Microsoft. And I said, I want a seat at the table because I work very closely with the account team. And they're like, there's no seats. And I'm thinking, okay, well, there's got to be one seat in the corner on the wall as a fly, simply somewhere. I'll take a beanbag. It doesn't have to be at the table. But anyhow, with that, I came back to them right away and I said, but you have to eat lunch. And I said, so let me sponsor a lunch. And they're like, okay, that's great. I love your outside the box thinking. Their Microsoft manager loved it. The client loved it. And so we're sponsoring a lunch for them. It's one day. They're bringing in 11 CIOs globally for this one meeting. And so just be creative. There's always a way. And then also to fail forward. I heard, when it was said to fail up, and I've always learned to fail forward. And what does that look like? Failing forward is that you really learn from yourself and you self-reflect and self-evaluate. And it doesn't mean that you've failed. You've been given an opportunity to learn. And then you can excel the next time. And that's really the power of failing forward, is it's not failure. It's forward progress. It's moving. You're continuing down your path. Your trajectory may change. The direction may go not where you thought. But you know what? You're still moving forward and you're still taking steps, either personally, professionally, in home life. And I tie that into, we talk about life and work balance, right? This is a little thing I'll throw in, but my mom told me there's no such thing. It doesn't happen. Balance doesn't happen, scales. But synchronization does. When we walk, we synchronize our walk. Our arms and legs are in synchronization to balance us. And if you look at it differently, that your life has ebbs and flows, and you just synchronize those ebbs and flows, then it's a lot less pressure as a woman and a mom and a business owner and as a wife, or, whatever your role is as a daughter. It changes perspective on things. So there is one piece I'd like to leave each of you as we sit up here, is people say that we are CEOs, and I like to think that I'm just a chief cook and bottle washer. Mm-hmm. But you're all CEOs of your own life. You can create endless opportunities. You have the capability to be a catalyst empowering others, and you can counteract each obstacle. So you're all your own CEOs with the power to do those things. And I would encourage y'all to wear that mantra, because you have the power to do that within your own life.
Christine, new whip bumper stickers. We're all our own CEOs. What do you think of that? Okay. Well, I know we were quite just at time, but I'd like to see, before we wrap things up, if there are any questions from anyone in the audience for our powerhouse of CEO panelists. Yeah, Barbara? Good one.
To be true to myself and to have fun. Don't take life so seriously. I started out as a fashion design major. I'm running a Microsoft partnership. Who would have thunk, I mean, come on, seriously. New York City, Garment District, Redmond. But I would say, don't forget your true self. Don't lose that fun side of me. Don't lose the creative side of me. Don't ever let go of that.
I definitely would be a lot bolder. I think, now I'm at the point where I've kind of stepped more into confidence as a businesswoman. And, I started young, and I think when I was in my earlier days, I just didn't feel the confidence, but now I feel a lot bolder, and I can have those multi-million-dollar discussions. And that's what I really encourage to a lot of the young girls that I mentor today, that you can get there, because we're working hard every day to make sure the barriers are being, down, that we're breaking the barriers. Yeah.
I think when you said bold, when I was younger, I definitely was bold. I took more risks. I jumped in with both feet. And I think with experience, I've kind of gone the other way. Like, knowing now what I know, I take a step back before I jump in. So I think it was better before, because I just do it and hope for the best, and if I failed, I just get up and keep going. So now I think there's a little bit more hesitation because of all the experience.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. Just to thank our panelists, and hopefully everyone took a page from Megan's book this morning, and they have an extra page in their survival guide based on the advice that everyone shared. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories. Appreciate it.
I have to tell you that Terry was a little, sort of subdued, because I had a conversation with her last night, and, "Oh, stop," she says. "This woman's like taking a drink from a fire hose. You get her going," and she's just hilarious. And in fact, she gave me a little sketch material, as some of you have today. Jennifer was sharing lovely pictures of these adorable granddaughter twins that she has, and a little grandson, and they were all, swiping in their phone, sharing pictures. And so too was Terry, but hers were Louis Vuitton bags, and look at these shoes and stuff like that. It was their little baby. We also started to talk about last night about the I love her acronyms for CEO, and we talk about the origin of words, and it's important. And her parents' company was about archery, and it brought to mind different meanings and origins of words. And we talked about the fact that the word sin, while it often has a negative connotation, is actually a word from archery. And all it means is that we can sometimes miss our mark. That's all. That's all. And so much, the theme that is building, I feel today, is that, setbacks are a setup for a comeback, and embrace failure, and find comfort in the discomfort, and all of that. And it's so true, and it's so important. We will all miss our mark at some time. And so the building of resiliency and that adaptability continues to be so important.